All right, so what's been happening in Texas? This is cumulative installed solar capacity. These numbers come from the Interstate Renewable Energy Council. So in 2010, the entire state had 30 megawatts of solar, cumulative. Remember that California was well over 2,000 megawatts. Texas had 30. In 2011, we got up to 86 megawatts. So an additional 56 megawatts was added in 1 year, and that's when we were 10th in the nation. In 2012, we got up to 140 megawatts. So, still doing pretty good in terms of how much additional capacity is coming online, because that actually represents a 63% increase in the overall cumulative capacity in Texas in just 1 year. And then now we're looking at 2013 numbers, and we're up to 215 megawatts. So we've got a lot of solar that's going in pretty rapidly here. And we also know that Austin Energy just entered into a contract with Sun Edison to do 150 megawatts just to serve Austin Energy, on top of what we've been doing already here. And that's going to be a project that will be out in West Texas. So here's some market forecasts for worldwide PV. And what they're showing is that still a lot of healthy growth going beyond 2014. So showing all the way out, some of the forecasts, well, they go out to like 2017. I know that we're seeing reports like Deutsche Bank just came out with one talking about the second solar gold rush has begun. And we're also seeing kind of a convergence in the forecast as well. It used to be that there'd be some that weren't nearly as aggressive as others. And in every case, we've seen that the most aggressive forecasts actually were the better forecasts in terms of what really happened. Let's see, solar job growth rankings. This comes from the Solar Foundation. You see the website there, solarfoundation.org. And so what they did was surveyed the industry, and they found that there was a 20% growth in solar jobs in 2013 over 2012. Again, pretty healthy growth, double digits growth in terms of number of jobs being created. I don't know any other industries that actually have that kind of growth. The total number of jobs they counted throughout the United States was over 142,000. And what I've learned since I made this slide was that there are now more people working in solar than actually are working in automobile or vehicle manufacturing. And so the solar industry has now eclipsed Detroit and other automobile manufacturing sites. And so so we've actually become a real industry now. In terms of how much generation per technology that was installed in 2012, you see this is throughout the United States, and you see that still a lot of wind farms are being built, followed by natural gas, and then solar PV actually came in third on this chart. And so this is how much new generation is coming on. And this is pretty interesting because there's a lot more PV happening now as a percentage of all new generation than what we've ever seen before. And that's one reason for that is as demand for electricity rises, you can build a solar photovoltaic power plant a lot faster than you can do a coal plant or a natural gas powered plant, and certainly a nuclear power plant.
So this wanted to kind of get to looking at some of the additional projections. This actually, I think, came from Deutsche Bank.
Yes, this is the Deutsche Bank.
So previously we were looking at projections for global installation demand. This one focuses just on the United States. And they made this forecast, I think, back actually in 2012 for, trying to gauge where U.S. capacity could be. 2013 was an estimate. I think they estimated around 6 gigawatts. We got close. We had about 4.8 gigawatts of capacity in the United States. But definitely, even under sort of a conservative scenario, they're anticipating pretty healthy growth. And I think they particularly got the fact that there'd be continued growth in the residential sector. So right now, we've seen, is looking at the previous chart, we saw that like residential has kind of gotten squeezed down to a relatively small market share. Doesn't mean it's not growing. It's just not growing by the leaps and bounds that we've seen utility scale in the past few years grow up. But what's being forecasted by SIA and by Deutsche Bank is that growth in sort of the distributed solar and the residential scale is going to sort of pick back up significantly, going from 2013 to 14 on up to the next couple of years, going into 2016. So this is just from Deutsche Bank. We also see some stuff from SIA, some from Citigroup and some others, and they're all fairly well forecasting the same thing. There's a little bit of a range between where the bottoms and ends of these things fall, but one thing they all have in common is very healthy growth in distributed solar, particularly in the residential and commercial scale for PV. And what we'll see, I think, is going to continue to drive that forward. Is falling costs, which we'll take a look at in a bit.
Okay, this is the idea of grid parity is something that the solar industry has always been talking about, and that's when do we get to the point where solar is at parity with other forms of electricity in terms of what the utility is going to charge you. And this is showing that we've got a lot of more states that are poised to reach grid parity. Certainly something like the utility scale project that's just been announced here in Austin, less than 5 cents per kilowatt hour. We've gone beyond grid parity. Solar is now cheaper than natural gas in terms of what utilities can purchase it for. All right, I was viewing a presentation on YouTube that just took place yesterday, where the speaker said that solar was still too expensive. That is no longer the case. Solar is at grid parity, or even better than other forms of generation, particularly at utility scale. And so, and it's going to be, more and more states are going to be crossing that threshold. And this is actually looking at grid parity, I think, kind of across the board in terms of residential as well as commercial as well as utility scale.
So yeah, I kind of wanted to to bring us to that. Again, all these slides are available. Some of them updated to the 2013 reports, and we've got that uploaded. So really, what we wanted to kind of show there is that obviously, and all the slides kind of speak to that. Solar's been growing a lot, and particularly in the last about 3 years here in the United States, we've seen just tremendous growth adding capacity, and that's been driven largely up until this point. That's been largely driven by combination of factors. One, reductions in the cost of PV, but also continuing support of various incentive programs, particularly at the state level. So California has dominated the PV landscape in the U.S. because of a large statewide incentive program. New Jersey has also kind of moved to the top of the charts, despite being a relatively small state and a relatively low radiance area, because they had several years of very generous incentives for PV. So, the states doing most solar were states that were putting a lot of resources into subsidizing it. The market is kind of starting to shift, and now what we're seeing over the potential for the next 5 years is that kind of from this point forward, it's less reliant on the maintenance of subsidies and more reliant on genuine cost reductions in solar that are kind of bringing us to increasingly to grid parity and even beyond in more and more places.